Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to call to order the Community Redevelopment Agency regular meeting. It is Tuesday, October 10th, 6 o'clock. Call the roll, please.
Chairman James.
Here.
Vice Chairman Harris.
Here.
Board Member Brandemart.
Here.
Board Member Grace.
Here.
Board Member Salvino.
Here.
Interim Director Weeks.
Here.
City Attorney Ansbro.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any citizens' comments, do we? Full house? No? Okay. Administrative reports. Go ahead, Kathleen.
Yes. Good evening, CRA board members. You have before you an update on the Arts and Seafood Celebration based on our meeting we had on September 29th. This is just for your review. I'm not going to go through the report, but we're looking at all the elements that we discussed in food, the sponsorship letters, it's all being handled. So I didn't want to take up too much time from this meeting, just to let you know that this gives you an update on the Arts and Seafood Celebration and where we are to date. The second item is the Executive Director's contract. The CRA is meeting with the City Attorney and Human Resources to develop a contract for the new Executive Director, but we do need some guidance from you in terms of the salary. As you will recall, the Executive Director position referenced a salary of a range between $85,000, which is the minimum range, $102,500, which is the midpoint range, and $120,000, which is the maximum range. So what we need from you is an idea of what you want to pay the new Executive Director so that we can work on a contract. We can offer her the contract, and once she has accepted and signed, and the relevant checks are made through the Human Resources Department, then she'll be on board, and we'll be able to give you a date when she will be on board.
Board Member Grace?
Yes, Kathleen, what was the salary for Rachel?
The salary for Rachel was, that was a contract, as you know, with RMA. The total amount was $13,000 a month. It worked out to $157,000 for management services.
What was the contract for Jeremy Earl?
I understand that it was $118,000.
118?
Yes.
Was that including
Benefits?
benefits?
I'm not sure. I think it's plus benefits.
Okay. I would really, I can't speak for this entire board, but I sincerely hope that we be fair with her. I would not even want to entice her to even consider less than $120,000.
In terms of the if I may say, in terms of the
157 was for Rachel, and we were contracting. I would like to see her somewhere in that mid-range up there where Rachel was. I don't know how the board feels about that, but I think she should be. I mean, her presentation was exceptional. She knows the inner working of being a CRA director. I certainly would want us to basically give her an opportunity to tell us what she's looking for. But $157,000 down to $120,000 is, to me, I can't see it. And anyway,
if I may say, board member, the former executive director Rachel Bach, when she did the analysis for the CRA board regarding the salary, she indicated that the $157,000 also calculated benefits. This position will be salary plus benefits. I don't know what the benefits the amount for
So the
benefits.
$120,000 is just salary, not including benefits? Is that
That's
what
my
you're saying?
understanding. There will be plus benefits
City
as well
manager,
to be
is that what you see
negotiated.
also?
He's not here. This is
Oh,
the attorney.
I can't even see who's,
That's Tom.
us,
Well,
city attorney.
I think what we need to find out is how much
Yeah.
the benefits were for Rachel.
Exactly. I don't want us to.
30%?
30%?
Well, go ahead. You got your calculator? You
So
doing
that will
calculator
be
number?
120,
Minus 30%. Let's see.
No,
plus
plus,
30%.
Oh, okay.
How much?
That's an extra 36,000, so it ends up being 156,000.
That's what we're looking at. Oh, okay.
So if we give her 120,000, it'll be, give or take, yeah, give or take 156,000, which is equal to
What it was before.
What
That
Rachel-
That makes sense. That really makes sense. The other thing that I want to interject, as long as we're on these two items, is that we have 6 months for the Arts and Seafood Festival. I don't think 6 months is going to get us there. I think we're going to need to probably, and I don't know how the board feels about it, push this back another couple of months, maybe 3 months. I know that if we push it back to July, school started August,
August is when school starts.
I don't know. If we can pull together all of those partners that we're talking about, and I say partners, I'm talking about the Lions Club, I'm talking about Clyde and Claire from the motorcycle, and Randy from the chamber. If we can pull those three entities together, along with the CRA and the board of directors, and you have always given us an update on the sponsorship, and you indicated that we already have letters out for sponsorship, or am I incorrect on that?
The draft letter was sent to the attorney so that he could review it.
So it's not
and then-
gone out
No,
yet?
not as yet.
looking.
I mean, I don't want us to have to do anything, because I really truly think that in the past, even though we've lost money, it has been a class act that we could be comfortable with. I also would like us to really sit down with the Dania Casino about the ban. I was at the casino on Saturday night. There is a group that is South Florida connected, and we don't have to go outside of the box. They're South Florida connected. The Imagines that backed up for the coasters on Saturday night, and awesome band, absolutely awesome. So maybe if we can entice them to do that instead of going out and getting somebody that we're not familiar with, don't know who they are, blah, blah, blah. Get somebody that we can all be associated with. I don't know. Let's see.
Anyone else have anything on anything? Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, that's okay. Go ahead.
On both the subjects, on the salaries and the, when we received the applications from the people that were applying, I thought on the applications they had put on there the what they requested for salary.
Yeah, it is.
It's on
And-
here.
And I think that request was considerably less than $120,000. Hers was somewhere in the $85,000 range. You know, I realize that everybody needs a fair shake, and I mean, if the board sees so, it's not that I'm trying to take away from the young lady by any means.
Salary was 95,000 she was asking for.
Okay, 95. So I mean, I thought that when they negotiated a salary, if she's asking for $95,000, why would we offer her $25,000 more to begin with? That's just the first thing. But the other thing is too is that, you know, when we talk about Jeremy and you know, the past with Jeremy and the past with Rachel, especially Rachel, and I'm not sure, because I only met Jeremy towards the end of his term. I don't know what his primary job was before that, what he did if he was a CRA director anywhere. But Rachel had many years of experience, and we're taking on a new person in a CRA job that we don't know. And I just thought that maybe there should be Not saying that could not be worth the 120, that if you think that's what you'd wanted to give her, but I thought there should be some form of maybe a probationary time or an entry-level time to get them in here if she was satisfied with that. The bottom line is that either way, the funding the CRA gets is a flat fund. That fund would come from the CRA itself, so it would just be if we gave that to them, gave that to her, it would just come out of their funds. I'm just voicing my opinion on how I would hire somebody. Especially, I mean, her presentation was great. I think that she has a lot of ideas. I'd like to see those ideas before we overpay. It's just, I think that maybe we could meet somewhere in the middle there or whatever. But it's just my opinion. On the other issue about the food trucks and so on, I think that Board Member Grace is on the right track of the time frame. I'm trying to remember who I ran across the other day, and but somebody told me that I think it was one of the new businesses in town that had some experience with this type of events and so on. And if I can remember, I will bring it back to you. And if you want to discuss it with that person, maybe I can bring that person to the meeting or something. I'm sorry, I forgot what it is. I think I have it written down in my book, but I didn't bring it with me. But I think that to speed it up a little bit, if we had somebody that had a background experience. If not, then I don't know how else we're going to get on the time frame.
You're right.
Thank you, Chairman.
Vice Chair.
As far as the salary goes, I think you want 125 or a little bit less, so I think around 112, 115 plus. I think the benefit package is worth $37,500, so that would be an acceptable place to make an offer. And did you say that the Arts and Seafood Festival back that up 6 months and have it in July?
No, I said 3.
3 months.
Because I don't think we're going to get there in 6 months.
Just settle.
I mean,
That's so good.
I just don't see it.
Just got to be careful of rainy days.
Yes.
Right. So maybe we shouldn't have it this year and do a better job of it next year.
That sounds like a winner.
Well, I mean, just putting it out there. What do you think?
Okay, I feel it.
Board Member Grace.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you did too?
I'll yield to,
Okay.
and then I'll come back.
The first thing I want to know about the Raquel is, when she asked for that amount, was that with or without benefits? Was that just her upfront salary
Yeah, that was-
that she's asking for, or did that include benefits?
It'd have to be the
I don't think
salary.
they include
Salary.
benefits.
Just salary?
Just salary.
I think typically
Well,
that's how it is.
I'd be all right with giving her what she asked for and then putting the benefits on top.
Okay.
That's all right, whatever you decide. Now, on this festival, if we really do it now, we're just going to settle because we're desperate. That's all we'll do, right? We'll get whatever we can in order to have the Art and Seafood Festival because we're desperate, because we're so far behind. And believe it or not, I wasn't even thinking about it until he just bit my bulb on that one. But I think that the vice mayor is 100% right. More or less, why don't we just let it go this year? People love the motorcycle show. I don't think it will be that greatly missed. And let's really do a big bash next season, but make sure we start earlier. And I like the idea of the band that the commissioner was talking about, because they're connected. I like that. And that means that people in this area will come, whereas the other band isn't from this area, and it brought outside people, but they also brought their own beer, they brought their own food, their own blankets, and after it was over, they all left. So I'm never for that anyway. This is for our people. I really feel that way. I always will. But the people that come there with their food, and maybe I don't blame them, $35 for a fish. But all these food trucks that we've been begging for every meeting, we can start lining them up very, very early and have more food trucks than what you even anticipated with this one. I agree with the vice mayor. I think we should cancel till next year and have a really good bash, maybe even fireworks. That would be nice.
Okay, I guess I'll give my 2 cents in on everything. As far as Raquel, I could just put myself in her shoes, and when you come to a competing job in an interview at a place where you have a whole bunch more qualified people, not sure if I would put $150,000 up there either, because I would be afraid that I might get looked over. And so if I'm playing devil's advocate, maybe she asked for 95 because maybe she didn't want to seem greedy. Mm-hmm. Maybe she did make more than that. We had people that made more than that, was willing to take pay cuts. And so you never know situation. You never know what was in her mind. I would hate for us to try to think that that's how much she would be okay with. I mean, I'm sure she can survive off of $95,000. However, maybe she thinks she's worth more than that, but wanted to make sure, she didn't seem greedy. I'm not sure if she knew of the prior salaries or even the attitude of each individual commissioner or a board member and how we feel about the situation. I would feel comfortable giving her more than $95,000 and whatever the consensus is. But I definitely would want to be fair and give her more than $95,000 if we were giving someone else already $120,000. Is that what we brought Rachel in on? Anybody know? Is that what we brought her in on?
Well, Rachel was a consultant, so
so that was the contract
that was the contract arrangement with RMA.
It's not like we gave Rachel a raise throughout the years. She was brought in on that contract.
But Jeremy Earl was the substantive executive director from 2009 to 2015. He was someone that you had a contract with, so he's, you can compare Jeremy Earl to the new director, since that was how the city made the arrangements for paying the director by contract.
Okay. Well, maybe I have you, but maybe we can not give her max, but something in the area so that it's something that she can work towards and prove herself a little more than what we've seen, because we haven't seen the work of any of them yet. And it didn't matter who we chose; they still have never worked for the city of Dania Beach. We are very unique in all that we have going on. So that's how I feel about that. As far as the art and seafood celebration, I think that it's a positive event for the city. I do not want it to be rushed. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't want us to have to settle and halfway do anything. So if that is the feeling that you guys get, that you're under a great deal of pressure and you're a little bit overwhelmed, then I wouldn't mind either pushing it back or not doing it this year if that's what you all wanted to do. So, Board Member Grace?
Yes, on the first subject of the CRA director, I came in a couple of months after Jeremy was hired for the CRA director. So I knew what he did. I think that the city manager came in a month before I was elected to office. And I know the contract that we had with these beautiful people out here that Rachel took over after Jeremy. We are going to have a contract with this young lady, and I'm sure that she's expecting us to be fair with her as we want her to be fair with us. So I'm inclined to agree with the vice board member, that we start out with 112 plus benefits.
Do you need action? Do you want to make a motion, a consensus?
So we can make an offer.
Okay.
Yes.
Reasonable.
That will be the office that I
Okay.
would like us to do.
That's your motion?
That is my motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, there's your consensus.
On the second part of it, the Arts and Seafood Festival, philosophy that my mom always had: if you're going to do something, do it right or don't do it at all. And I definitely don't want us to rush and try to put something together that not only the residents of the city of Dania Beach and those that are attending the Arts and Seafood Festival are going to be comfortable with. This was the last Saturday that the Dania Casino had the food trucks for this era. But I'm going to tell you, on Saturday night, even with the 700 people upstairs for the concert, those food trucks were nonstop downstairs. I mean, the people were lined up out there constantly buying stuff. And then, of course, the restaurant upstairs and downstairs did good. And then they had even though they had the coasters upstairs, they had a band on the floor with the slots. So we haven't worked out the logistics with the parking, with the casino, with the church. We don't have any sponsorships that are lined up yet. So I know that people are going to be very disappointed that we're not going to have the Arts and Seafood Festival this year if we decide to do it. But if we're going to do it, we have to do it later in the year, or are we just going to have to wait until next year?
Board Member Salvino.
Thank you. I hate to give that thing up.
I know.
Is there any possibility that, you know, if you guys want to, you know, postpone it, that would be fine. But if something happens to change here and can come up with a solution that can pull it off in the next, you know, in the reasonable amount of time, would you reconsider going back to it if the plan is brought back to the board and they like that plan, if it was maybe within our time frame, if it was done right?
I don't want to squash it at all, you know, if we don't have to. But I think the first thing for us to do is to compromise as to moving it back. We're talking about April the 18th and 19th, I believe.
That's right.
And, I mean, that's right upon us. We'll have to move it back at least April, May, June, maybe August.
It's hot. It's like going to the theme park, man.
Squelching.
It's hot.
There's nothing wrong with letting it wait, Bobby, really.
Yeah. So, okay.
What do you think? Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I was thinking-
What do you think, Kathleen?
Well, you know, after the board workshop, we started to move ahead to have it done, and we established the dates, and it is 6 months out, but we had already geared up to make it work.
You think you can make it work? Is that what you're saying?
With the food trucks, though.
Well, that was what we were working on. There are some elements. The reason why this document was done, there are some elements that have to be considered. We will have to have the marketing team to get the marketing out. You'll have to agree that Standing Ovations will do the load in, load out, because, you know, we've had that experience with them. And as I said in the report,
What's Standing Ovation?
that's the company that did it last year.
I'm not comfortable with that, definitely. I'm not.
Oh, wait, are you talking? I think it's. Are there two different people that did it?
No, we had that one firm. I mean, if we don't have certain elements of the event, in terms of people who have the experience to do it, then I totally agree that we should put it off, and that we should then have an RFQ for someone to produce it in 2019 and move forward. But to do it in 6 months, we would need the people who have done it and who are already set to put it out. If not, I would agree with moving it backwards to, or forwards to 2019.
I'll make a motion that we put together a good RFQ for 2019 and don't have one in 2018.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Board Member Brandemart.
Yes.
Board Member Grace.
Yes.
Board Member Salvino.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Harris.
Yes.
Chairman James.
Yes.
Thank you.
One little comment on that. Please, again, you know the feelings of, I think the majority of us up here is get those food trucks for that next event. It is within the budget of our residents. Instead of the man who you give 3 spaces to and charges us so much money for that seafood. He gets it every year. He's very lucky.
Okay. Did you have, that was it? Okay. We have the consent agenda. Do we have any polls?
Move the item.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Board Member Brandemart.
Yes.
Board Member Grace?
Yes.
Board Member Salvino?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Harris?
Yes.
Chairman James?
Yes.
Thank you.
Discussion and possible action. The DBCRA strategic marketing plan presented by the RMA.
Board Member Chair?
Yes.
Are we are all in agreement with the new executive director, the 112 plus?
Yes, we already voted on that.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, we said all in favor for that
Okay,
one.
all right, okay.
Kathleen, you okay?
Board members, we are having a presentation first by RMA, the market analysis that you approved. Kevin Crowder of RMA will make a presentation on that, and that will be followed by the marketing plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, and the market analysis really is sort of the precursor, and we'll flow right into Sharon and Sarah's presentation. Bear with me, I'm having a little sinus issue this evening. What I wanted to do is we'll talk about the market analysis and what we saw, but I want to walk through sort of the approach that we use, and because I think it's important to put that in context with what the market analysis shows, and especially what Sharon and Sarah are going to present, and how that fits into the bigger picture of what you're tasked to do here with your CRA and really where you're trying to go. And so that it's not just there in a vacuum. So what we're going to do is talk about really the 7 steps to successful redevelopment and economic development, and then this fits into pieces of those. The first really is vision, and you'll hear a little bit more about this from Sharon, especially when we start talking about aspirational vision. When I'm looking about this, when I look at the vision though, I'm really thinking about what's important to your community, what's important to the people and your constituents that live in Dania Beach, to your stakeholders. And it's about how they connect to your place. It's how they connect to your city. The Knight Foundation did an analysis of this several years ago, nationwide, all different types of cities, and they consistently found that the 3 most important things on why people are connected to their community is the aesthetics. It's how a place looks and feels. It's the social offerings, the activities, the ability of citizens to engage with each other. And then it's how open and welcoming that community is. And that could be how open and welcoming it is for new arrivals and transplants, for tourists that visit, or even for businesses and citizens that are trying to come and conduct business here in this building. It's anything and everything. And then that starts leading you to, okay, what are the aspirations of your community? Steps 2 and 3 really is about leadership and then the team that you build. You made a decision a few minutes ago about that team. When I look at cities, I've been doing economic development for about 25 years, and when I look at cities around the state of Florida, I always think of baseball. And I look at most of the cities in the state of Florida are playing single A and double A baseball when they're trying to do economic development. Then you have a few that are doing triple A, and you have very few that are playing in the majors. But it's leadership and the team that's put together by those cities that are striving to move from double A into triple A and then into the majors. North Miami Beach is a perfect example where we did a lot of work with sort of this analogy, and the mayor, the city commission, and then the team that they built around them really moving forward to, within a year and a half, 2 years, 46% increase in their increment in their CRA. They led Dade County with a 17% increase in their tax base after missing 5 real estate cycles. And so this is really where the rubber meets the road, and it starts with the 5 of you on this dais, and then comes the team that you put in place to then move into the additional steps for success. Step 4 really is about the plan that you do, and this is where the market analysis really comes in. And then it's going to get the market analysis, and what you'll hear that we found is going to guide the marketing plan that you're going to hear in a few minutes. It's going to guide how you implement your redevelopment plan. There are elements in here that are beyond the control or the influence of the CRA, but the responsibility of the city. It may be your citywide capital plan. It may be operations. It may be policing. It may be sanitation, code enforcement, et cetera. But really what we start off is looking at what's driving investment. Investment is what's going to grow your tax base, that's going to give you the resources to improve quality of life for your constituents. That investment, there's 5 things that drive investment, and that's land, the real estate, labor, capital, the markets, and regulation. How each of these influences your local economy is different than how these 5 things influence neighboring cities. You know, when we look The city names didn't come out, but if you scale how each of these influences a local economy, on the left you have the city of Stewart and how these things might influence those cities. In the middle you have West Palm Beach, and then over on the lower right you have Miami Beach. Obviously the markets influence the Miami Beach economy hugely, whereas land is not as big of an issue because there's very little land under the city's control with them being able to do things. So what it's about is understanding how these things influence your economy, and then what can you, as a board, realistically do to improve any of these things for the better. Because there may be some labor issues, but your ability to influence the labor market is very different than your ability to influence real estate or regulations. The next piece is really looking at what is important. There's going to be things that can't be measured that are as important to bringing the investment as the things that you can measure. Again, how people think and feel about Dania Beach, how developers and investors think and feel about Dania Beach may not have any basis in the data that we're looking at. There may be other factors that are there. So it's really important to kind of look beyond that and let the data inform, but there's a role for other things when we're looking at the market analysis, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Another piece of when you're putting your plan together is really understanding what are those common business climate themes? What are the things that you see consistently that are influencing? What are the things that you as elected officials hear over and over and over from business owners in your community, from developers trying to do projects in your community, from residents? Those are the things that rise to the top. These are just some examples. We'll give you some specifics here in a few minutes of what we found here in Dania Beach. And then what are the opportunities? The left is a newspaper headline, front page from 1982 on South Beach. I use this because we're now almost 40 years beyond where South Beach was. Late 70s, early 80s, South Beach was as bad as any city can be. And so every city has those opportunities to grow and improve. And what happened in South Beach was really 5 things. There's a lot more than that, but we could come back to what are the 5 things. And it's something that we've been able to apply in city after city after city. You don't have to have a beach. You don't have to have Art Deco. You don't have to have a name. But how do you apply these lessons? What is the most important thing to preserve? What are the most important enhancements to make? What to expose? What do you have that if people knew you had it, it would be a game changer and it would make a difference? What are the most important investments to make? And then what do you have to capitalize on? And bring those 5 things together, and we'll show you that at the end. And that kind of starts setting the themes for your different plans as you go forward onto the realistic things that you can implement to improve local economic conditions and quality of life. The 5th step is implementation, and this is the most important step. You can have a great plan, but if the plan is not implementable, then it's just a plan, and it's not going to succeed. One of the key things to implementing, besides having the leadership and the team, is adopting these economic development values. And this is not for just your CRA. These are organization-wide. Every department of the city of Dania Beach, certain departments of Broward County, Florida Department of Transportation, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, all have an impact on economic development in your community and on growth. But responsiveness, information, and credibility. Responsiveness, again, throughout the organization. It's not that you need to run government like a business, but adopting private sector standards for customer service and responsiveness is very important when you're competing for private investment dollars. Information that's meaningful and relevant to the person that's seeking it, whether it's a resident, a prospective business, a developer. It doesn't have to be 200 pages of data. It can be 2 pages if it's the right 2 pages of information. And then 3rd is credibility. Building, maintaining, and aggressively protecting your credibility with the private sector, with the investors, with the brokers and the bankers, whose job it is to do the deals that need to happen for your local economy to grow. Also is a reality check, and doing a reality check as you look at your plan and you look to try and implement. Do you have the resources? Do you have the funding? Do you have the staff? Do you have the talent to implement the plan that you've developed? It does you no good to develop a big redevelopment plan with 150 great ideas that your constituents love and that you love if you don't have the resources and the staff to implement them. You've got to have that reality check. You've got politics. Political reality is something that we all deal with within this business, and understanding that and getting beyond that. So one of the things that we try to do when we come back to those 5 questions is use those to find common ground for 95%. And then accountability. Is it measurable? Is it accountable? Is it assigned? This we just use as an example when we talk about sort of the politics. The green, and I know it's a little hard to see, these are the 11 strategies of the North Miami CRA plan when they extended a year and a half ago. Downtown, commercial corridors, targeted industries, public improvements, neighborhoods, et cetera. The ones in green, and this runs from 2016, 2017 out to 2045. The ones in green are the ones that create tax increment. Now, I know that you're a TIFLA CRA, however, you're still looking to improve your tax base because that's still going to generate what you need, the resources that you need. The ones in red are the ones that spend TIF. They don't create TIF, they spend a TIF. And the ones in gold can go either way. So essentially, you've got to do the green ones before you can do the red ones, basically. You've got to start creating that money. And what happened in North Miami was they finally stopped, when they went through into this plan, they finally stopped thinking in terms of election cycles and started thinking in terms of legacy. Because this is a very long process. Again, we go back and look at Miami Beach in 1982, it took a long time for that redevelopment to happen. And so it really is about these legacies and creating for the future and not just the projects from one election cycle to another. Step 6 and 7 is private investment and financing. Private investment. Remember that for economic development to happen, for redevelopment to happen, it takes the investment of private sector money. And private sector money invests on their terms, not on the city's terms. Now, you need to work with them. They need to work with you. It's not, the projects still need to be compatible with your community. They need to be consistent with your community values. The message is not that you need to settle. It's just that understand that their motivations, the private sector's motivations when coming in to make an investment in your community is very different than your motivations and goals. And so understanding those two perspectives becomes very important. And that's where you build that credibility that I was talking about. And that's how you set yourself apart and change how people think and feel about you compared to the other locations in the stack of opportunities that they have on their desk when they're trying to decide where to put that money. And then financing. What are your resources? You have your CRA. There's a lot of different financial tools out there. New market tax credits. There are incentive programs at the county. There are programs at the state. There are a lot of different opportunities for financing. So as we come and look in Dania Beach, coming back to sort of summarize and talk a little bit about some of the investment drivers and what we were looking at is, you've got growing office use, and this is really looking in downtown Dania Beach. We did look citywide and we looked regionally at different places, but really looking in this core area. Growing office use, seeing increasing rents, lower vacancy, seeing strength in the office market. It is mostly Class B and C, but we're seeing strength there. The industrial market looks soft and doesn't look like a strong area, and maybe is incompatible or inconsistent with maybe what the direction you want to go with downtown and with the mixed-use pedestrian environment anyway. Retail, lower vacancies, lower capitalization rates. When we look at cap rates, which is essentially, easy way to describe it as the expected return on investment or how that the private sector will use to value property or to value assets. We use it to get a snapshot and understanding of how the private sector investors view an area in terms of risk reward. And we're really looking at those trends. And we see a lowering of the capitalization rate on retail, which is a good sign for us and shows some confidence and some stability. Multifamily sector interest in growth as well. And I'm sure that you already know that. And a strong hospitality outlook as well, hotel, visitor industry. As you know, there's significant private investment already occurring. So when we talk about the capital driver, that private investment is significant for Dania Beach. And you have several large employers and you have recognizable brands in some of the companies that are located here, which again, when you start coming back and connecting how people think and feel about Dania Beach, gives you more of your story to tell. You do have a below average income in the downtown compared to citywide and the greater region, and you have low home ownership. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. 22% of your population moved to Dania Beach in the last 3 to 4 years. 15% from somewhere else within Broward County. You do have a daytime population downtown and want to continue to grow that. As we move into Sharon's presentation, the key to economic downtown redevelopment is getting people downtown however you need to do it. Whether it's events like you were talking about or other different types of events, as you work towards getting the real brick and mortar development, it's getting people downtown that creates the energy, creates the critical mass, and creates that additional demand for revitalization. You have the proximity to the ports. The key thing here is to identify and look for where are the best places to capitalize on that. Every city in Broward County and Miami-Dade County, when they're out promoting themselves, identify proximity to the airport and the seaport as an asset, no matter really where they are located. So it's really about identifying where your strength is, not just generally. Again, redevelopment agency tax credits. The map over on the right, the green areas, shows you the eligibility areas for the new markets tax credit run by the federal government. It is, I believe, the best economic development program that is out there. It is the most complicated economic development program out there, but is worth it, is a valuable program. You do have nearby competition. You have downtown Hollywood. You have Fort Lauderdale. You have other areas that are similar. And then you have other developments. One of the things that we'll talk about is you have Dania Point. And the key thing with Dania Point is working with them, again, building that credibility, building that relationship so that Dania Point is, so it's a relationship of mutual benefit. You don't want it to be competitive. And so identifying the programs and the opportunities as a CRA board to make sure that it is complementary and not competitive is going to be critical, because it is a game changer for Dania Beach as well. And it's not coming in to be competitive with you. It's coming in to be competitive with Oakwood and Sawgrass and Aperture and these other areas. But it's something that you'll really need to pay attention to, going back to steps 2 and 3 and talking about leadership. Some of the business climate themes, we did this really as a SWOT analysis, looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I'm not going to read all of them. But, you know, your strengths, again, you already have investment happening, and we talked about your location. Things like the patch, your large employers. On your weaknesses, you do, as we said, you have lower income levels, you have an older housing stock, and there are places that the aesthetics need improvement. Opportunities, you know, parcels along the FEC, tourism, educational partnerships, the different incentive programs that are out there that we talked about. And then threats. We just talked about competition. Gentrification is another one. And this is something that you really need to pay attention to, because your home ownership rate is fairly low, gentrification is a possibility. But there's a lot of different ways as you move forward and start taking what's here and putting that into a real plan. There are ways to address that. Well, on the first slide, when we talked about vision, you saw Ben's Chili Bowl, which is on the U Street corridor in Washington, D.C. And it's an area that's gone through a lot of transition. I pulled a lot of the data on it, though, and we spent a lot of time there and looking at it to see, you know, did gentrification happen? How much did it happen? What did they do that prevented it? To really understand what's going on there. And so that's going to be something to just to watch out for and start thinking about now. What are those programs, and really, how do you increase home ownership? And then what you'll see on weaknesses and threats is crime perception. There is perception of crime. That's something that needs some attention as well. We look at market potential. We don't really look at market demand. We look at potential. Market demand, just like a market analysis. The market analysis really just tells you, it looks at the data and tells you how you got to a place maybe you don't want to be anymore. It doesn't have to have anything to do with where you can go. Leadership and your team have to do with where you can go. So we look at market potential rather than just using a multiplier to come up with demand. And it's really about having that brand strength, having the right regulations in place, implementation, developer and private sector execution, and what is the potential to tap into in a 5 to 7 year time frame. And we think that there's almost 5,000 residential units that could be tapped into. It doesn't mean that's how many are going to be built. We have developer timing that has to be met as well. Up to 75,000 square feet of retail and restaurant space, and maybe 100,000 square feet of office space. Get some new office in here to complement the strength you already have in Class B and C. And then to conclude and transition to Sharon, what we really see come out of the market analysis is preserve your authentic character, enhance your aesthetics, your identity, and your offerings, expose the assets you have, and that it's already happening here with some of those investments that are already occurring. Invest in aesthetics, your processes, redevelopment and policing, and capitalize on your location and your role as an employment center. And so as part of your marketing plan, and then as you move forward implementing other redevelopment programs, hopefully that gives you a framework that'll help you improve your
Board Member Savino, do you want to?
You want me to wait? You want me to wait till Sharon's done?
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. And I'll talk as fast as Kevin. He's a really good speaker, so I'll try to do as well as he did. So we want to go right into after what Kevin just talked to you about, which is truly the market analysis is what we always start with in any marketing plan. And what we've obviously seen for several years, and a lot of things are working, and we want to talk about some of those new things. But just to give you a brief overview, last time Sarah gave you that synopsis of what has been done. So I don't want to repeat any of that. I want to kind of start where I left off. So we go through this process, understanding that current situation, looking at that SWOT analysis, really defining what are the objectives, what are very clear, identifiable, measurable objectives that we can set in a plan, and then coming up with our strategies, the tactics, the budget, and then evaluating it at the end and making sure that, and not even at the end, but just like as you go. When in marketing, we want to continually evaluate and see how things are working and how we adjust within the programs. One of the important things is that tactics and budget and being really, realistic in what we have and what we can do and how we prioritize and use the money as wisely as possible. So that's what we've kind of gone through here. A little bit more into the situation analysis and kind of what Kevin studied is we just kind of looked online. What are people saying about Dania Beach? And I think this is about where I got to last time. Mm-hmm. And I just read the top one and the bottom one that, in 2010, it was a very negative comment. And in, right now, the Facebook one says, because I can read that one, during the past 5 years, Dania Beach has improved a lot. Nice hotels, good food, and nice people walking on the boardwalk. I love it. These other ones are all positive. So it's really good that we're getting that positive sense of consumers that are coming to Dania Beach and enjoying it, residents and visitors. So when we do a search for things to do in Dania Beach, this is another good point. The top three things are items in Dania Beach, but you still have Fort Lauderdale coming up. And we are greater Fort Lauderdale, so we want to capitalize on that, but really keep an eye on helping to move those things up in an SEO so that you can really, keep Dania Beach top of mind and keep pushing all of that into those Google searches. The other thing is shopping downtown. This is another focus, like through a merchants association and through working with the downtown businesses in particular, is when you search for shopping, only 2 businesses come up that are from downtown. There are strategies that we can help those, or people can help the businesses to kind of get them to raise to the top and come up higher in that Google search, because we all know people only go to really the first page. So that's where you want to be striving in that kind of search. So then in an overview of the hotels, there are currently about 2,000 hotel rooms, and then the Le Méridien is doing a $30 million renovation. There are going to be 245 new rooms. What's important, you look at every single one of these, you do, look for hotels. All of these hotels come up, and they're called Fort Lauderdale, but they're in Dania Beach. Mm-hmm. So, but they're all here. So that's really important, too, from a tourism standpoint, working with the CVB, and really continuing a relationship with the CVB and taking advantage of opportunities that they have. They have their annual marketing meeting. I don't know if any of you were there, but they had their annual marketing presentation a couple of days ago. So anyway, then I just wanted to point out, too, I did an Airbnb search, just so you know whether, some cities are embracing Airbnb and some cities are, not liking it because, there's no bed tax coming in and things like that. So this is just a map to show you where your Airbnb places are, there were about 300 and some odd that are listed in Dania Beach, and 3,600 reviews. So what's next? What we want to go through, we talk about, branding, identity and branding, and people use that word brand a lot. So, and Kevin talked about it, and it's really how people feel about you. That's what a brand really is. It's not a logo. A logo identifies the business. The identity is all the visual aspects that you use, but a brand is really that perceived emotional connection. And you have different audiences perceive Dania Beach differently. And so you focus on that brand in a consistent message. So what my favorite definition when we talk about what we're doing is that a brand is a singular idea or concept that you own in the mind of a prospect. That was the definition of Al Rice, and he wrote the book in the 1960s called Positioning the Battle for Your Mind. So when you think about, and again, all of this ties back to what Kevin was talking about, when you think about how what a developer thinks and feels. I can tell you what I was at ICSC, and one city that I work in, every single person, it was not Dania Beach, one city that I work in, every single person, business owner, developer, real estate person that came up to me, they had a negative comment. The community and visitors had positive comment. So it was really eye-opening that people are thinking different things. They said it was so hard to do business in that city. That's a bad thing. We have to really change that. So when we look at that, I wanted to just read real quickly, several years ago when Jeremy was here, the brand promise of Dania Beach, which again is just how you want people to think and feel about you. We've been operating, in the CRA, just as staff, working kind of under this brand promise. And it's really that Dania Beach promises residents, businesses, and visitors a true renaissance, building a bridge from our history to our future. We will embrace the spirit of reinvention and promote a modern ideal. The Dania Beach experience will be one of optimism and revitalization. We will provide an atmosphere where businesses can bet on themselves and win. Really good. We will create a sense of community and build a downtown that can be enjoyed by visitors and residents alike. We will transform Dania Beach as a city and a destination. Dania Beach will be a source of pride for our stakeholders. Now that's not, something to do. That's not a tactic, but it's a feeling. It's a promise that inside, the city you want to operate under, that's how you want people to feel. That goes back to the credibility and the responsiveness that Kevin talked about. So I'm just going to go quickly through some example tactics on identity and branding. We've, wanted to do a brand standards manual for the CRA, just again to keep everything very consistent. Do new light pole banners. Again, you create a sense of place with light pole banners. We used to have some, in the downtown area. It's really important as we start to do additional things to put light pole banners up, and you can give people a sense of what they're going to feel. What if a visitor at a hotel walks out and they see banners and they have pictures on these banners that go down the street, it's going to draw them down and they're going to understand, what am I going to find next? In North Miami Beach, we've just finished the tasteful, rhythmic, artistic, and eccentric concept, and they're going to do those banners in their downtown. When you do a downtown master plan, when you're going to start to work, this is not really on the, on the visitor side. This is talking about communicating with your current residents, really getting involvement. You want to have kind of a messaging, a campaign messaging about what you're going to be doing in your downtown when you want that public input. So through, logos that are for a visual that's for a project with a project website, and then project materials that continually remind people to come to those public meetings. And here's another one in Sunrise. We put the banner on City Hall, and really getting participation from people to develop that master plan. So under the category of business attraction, retention, and communications, which is something we all want to do in CRAs as well, is host that banker, broker, developer event. At that event, we would have a brochure with every single piece of land. Kevin and I have done this many times where we have these brochures, and all of the opportunities are in a little booklet, and available online, and it shows the brokers and the bankers and everyone what is here and gives them, ideas on what the code is and what the zoning is and what you're looking for and things like that. So that's a really good thing. Again, just I don't want to read every one of them, maintaining business inventories, building email list, doing business luncheons, cross-promotional campaigns with businesses and hotels is really important here as well. Completing the guide to doing business, that's something that Dan and Sarah have worked on, and really completing that so when a new business comes in or a new business is looking at Dania, there's a really nice guide to help them just go through the process and make it really smooth. And then determining the feasibility to support a Main Street program if that's an option in the downtown. So here are some of the example the co-op ad that you've done, and that was the ICSC thing. And this is just an example, again, of the consistency. We had a CRA annual report, we had a cross-promotional event with businesses, then a cross-promotional event VIP card, event advertising in magazines, and then a business communications strategy. We've done some of the similar things here, but I was just wanted to show you some of the examples of things that you can look for in the future as well. So customer-based advertising and events, these are just examples of monthly events, and I think it's really important when we talk about attracting new customers, attracting people that live here, connecting people to place, and those opportunities for people to socialize and gather. And the Arts and Seafood Celebration is one, which is annual, but it's one time. And we've talked many, many times about launching a downtown monthly arts and antique walk, and it's in the plan this year. So I think that's going to be, again, really, really important to hold on to that. That can be in lieu of, spending time creating a wonderful art walk in the downtown rather than the time and money on arts and seafood this year. That could be really good for this downtown and this master plan process and the new development that is coming and the new development that you want to come. And then, evaluating the opportunities to participate in the sunny.org co-op advertising. I've already looked through. There's probably about 5 or 6 opportunities that are very affordable and would work really well within this plan. The Neighborhood Ambassadors Program obviously is a great program to continue, and we do a Neighborhood Ambassadors newsletter and the weekly happenings and things like that. The patch, again, maintaining that, having a brand standards for the patch. And then the new thing at the patch that we've talked about a lot is the farm-to-table dinners. And there's a real opportunity to work with chefs, local and regional chefs. And now that there's electric in there, I think it's something that would be a phenomenal focus because at Swank Farms, if anyone wants to go visit in Loxahatchee, they have these monthly farm-to-table events with chefs, and they do it as fundraisers. But these are the Mr. and Mrs. Swank, and I've spoken with them about the patch before, and they were interested in coming down and seeing it because they thought it just sounded really cool that a city was doing this. That's their farm. But again, it gives us an idea of how amazing, a monthly dinner at the patch could possibly be. So then the final thing is just the physical environment and, the aesthetics, being able to making sure that we promote whatever incentive programs are available to the property and business owners, staying on top of that, participating with the Creative Arts Council and really capitalizing on the opportunity to have, with the Atrium Gallery and making that more dynamic, determining the feasibility of an art and public places ordinance, working with the wayfinding signage. And again, people seeing in the physical environment what Dania Beach represents and its unique character and kind of bringing that to life. And with that, I made it.
Good job. Good job.
I withdrew because we don't have time.
Yeah.
Okay, so is this something that you all want to discuss and have a workshop with later? I mean, I honestly...
I think we need to because Kevin talked about some stuff that they did at South Beach, and I remember when that was thought up. We've got a lot of stuff that's going on in the city of Dania Beach. We're not going to have the Arts and Seafood Festival this year, but as I was having my second meeting today, and I walked outside, I think we can have a great venue right out here between the library and City Hall. And then the next one that we have, maybe Christmas at the beach, where we just dedicated that beautiful spot for a nice dinner and dancing. So these are things that we will want to talk about in the near future.
Yeah, I think that we have a new executive director, and it would be very, it would be backwards motion for us to discuss these things before we have her here with us.
Workshop.
And so a workshop, I think, would be great. And so we can add her into the conversation and see if she have any ideas or things or resources that she has from coming from where she is as well.
And priorities.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, I do. I hope the plan is a guide. It has draft on it, on purpose, so that there's just a lot of information in there, and I'm sure she'll, appreciate reading through that and seeing all that information, and then, going figuring what's next.
Thank you. I
All right.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. So go
Just
ahead.
one thing. Kevin, the information that you gave us tonight, do you have that like in a booklet or something?
We do.
Because I want that. That is very important information, what you brought up about there. And your very first word in your whole presentation was perception. So obviously you do know what the problem is here.
We'll work with Kathleen to make sure you'll
Yeah,
get a
you
copy of
know,
that.
everything that he pointed out, that was wonderful.
Thank you.
Really.
Great, thank you.
All right. I'm going to okay. Anybody have any other comments?
Board members, in terms of RMA, their contract ended on September 30th, and you mentioned a workshop. We will try and arrange that as soon as possible. It would mean, though, that they will not be able to do any work for us unless you want them to work on a month-by-month basis until the director comes and gets settled and we move forward, or we would need some direction in that regard.
Maybe we can can we prorate their services until our executive director gets here?
Yes.
Is that something that you guys are comfortable with?
You got it.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think it's a great idea.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, we can give each other you guys want a 5-minute recess, all right?
Oh, you got to start.
No, you got to roll.
You got no choice.
Okay. Well, meeting adjourned. Let me pull up.
All right, the meeting starts.
They just need a couple of minutes to switch these things over, and then soon as,
Okay.
so like 5 minutes. We'll give you 5 minutes, and then because they have to switch it.
Very good. Very good.
Okay.